Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stolen Bases here on the Barn Burner and Zingo TV network. I am your host, Mark Everett Kelly. We have a special guest today on our show. I want to remind you to please make sure to download the Zingo TV app and the Android app on your iOS devices as well as your smart TVs. And before I introduce our co-host and our guest, I'd just like to summon the welcome of everyone here at Barn Burner TV and Zingo TV to have you with us here at this time. We hope we can provide you with the excellent type of entertainment that you are getting used to now, kind of staying in at home and trying to adjust to what's going on in society. We're glad to have you with us here at the Barn Burner TV network and on Zingo TV. Let me introduce my co-host at this time. We call him the Phenom up there in Canada, Logan Lockhart. Logan, how you doing today?
Good, Mark. I'm very excited. And hello, Frank. I have to say, I was a big fan growing up. I'm not kissing anyone's behind. I'm just saying, I was a fan. So this is special.
Great to be with you guys today.
That leads us to our guests. We have former Texas Ranger, former Toronto Blue Jay, former Milwaukee Brewer, former New York Met, and former Smithtown Christian and Smithtown East High School superstar, Frank Catalanotto, coming from St. James, New York, the epitome of the upper class of people, in my view. Frank, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you, but like I was telling Frank before we went on air, the beard and the fact that the beard looks like there's no gray hair or anything. He tells me there is, but I'm telling you, for a guy who's a month older than me, you look like you could still be a model, Frank. It's a very, very good look for you.
Thanks, Mark. But trust me, there's plenty of gray. I'm not getting too close to the camera right now. There's plenty of gray in there.
All right. Well, we'll take your word for it. Frank played in the major leagues, came up, I believe, in 1997. He and I go way back to when we were kids. We've known each other since we were 9 years old. So it is a pleasure for me to do this interview with him, get caught up on him, kind of get his opinion on what's going on in the sports world. Frank, a couple of things that have happened the last couple of days I wanted to get your opinion on. ESPN the other day put out a list of the 115 World Series, and they ranked them in order from best to worst. And they put out the top 10. And I just wanted to ask you, have you seen the list? We'll go over the top 10, but have you seen the list? And do you have some favorite World Series of your own that you'd like to talk about?
I haven't seen the list. For me, being a fan and watching that the Texas Ranger and Cardinal World Series, I thought that was amazing. I forget what year that was, maybe 2011.
2011, yep.
Yeah, that was amazing. Growing up as a kid, I remember the one with Oakland and was it the Dodgers? The earthquake. The earthquake game. Yep. Yeah. That was a memorable one for me. But as far as like the best one that I can remember, I mean, the Yankee one, when was that against the Dodgers? That was a memorable one. And then, but the one that I felt that was the best one that I remember watching was that Texas Ranger Cardinal one when David Freese, hit that triple to right field and then wound up winning the game with the home run.
Now, do you remember how that 2011 season ended? I mean, that was the most insane ending final day of a series. Logan, but while I get to you, do you remember that final day? What can you tell us about what you remember? And then Frank will ask you the same question.
Mm-hmm.
So that final day of 2011, I'll never forget that. And I remember saying at the time after it ended, the next time we see something like that will be 100 years from now, guaranteed. Now, in March, in spring training, I don't remember what publication it was, but in Boston, they labeled the Red Sox as the best team ever. They made many acquisitions that year. You had Adrian Gonzalez come in, Carl Crawford, and the outfield was someone who was great at the top of the lineup. But we have to include both the AL and NL because the Cardinals are involved here with the NL, getting in on the final day, battling there. I believe they beat Houston when Houston was in the National League.
They
On
did.
the final day to get into the playoffs.
Yep.
That was cool because they were behind. But the
Yep.
story in the American League was just as good, and I think it's better. The Tampa Bay Rays, they might have been like 11 games back or something at the start of September. The Red Sox are this team they are going down. Okay, I mean, Terry Francona was the manager. They're going down quickly. The Rays come in. They play the Yankees on the final day at Tropicana Field. The Rays are down. I believe it was 6 or 7-0.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankees blow it. Evan Longoria walk off. The Rays are in the playoffs. The Cardinals just sneak in the playoffs. And the Cardinals, just like they did in 2006 as well, they go to the World Series as a wild card team. They only have home field advantage against the Rangers because the NL won the All-Star game that year, which a lot of people in Texas weren't happy about because the Rangers, they were the best team in baseball. They were unbelievable. They don't get home field. Game 1 starts in St. Louis, and through there, it's a great series. It's back and forth. Texas has a 3-2 lead, and of course, 2 strikes away on 2 different occasions in Game 6 at Busch Stadium. Couldn't get it done. And like you mentioned, Frank, David Freese, the St. Louis boy for his hometown, comes through, and the Cardinals win the World Series, eventually in Game 7.
Yeah, Frank, I know you're being a player. I think you had just retired either the year before or that year. And I know you had played with some of those guys. The thing about the Red Sox and the Cardinals is they were each 9 games back. Each of them 9 games back in the beginning of September. Both of them made incredible runs to just get to the postseason. What is your memory of that day and that season?
Yeah, you guys just refreshed my memory about those teams being that far back. I forgot about that, and now I do remember those. That game with the Rays, with the walk-off with Longoria, and that was very exciting. The thing that I remember most is, yes, I retired in 2010, and most of the guys that were on the Rangers I was friends with or I played with. So I was rooting for them, and I just remember it was back and forth, and when it looked like the Rangers were going to win the World Series a couple of times. And for that to slip away was crazy. I was obviously upset for my friends that I played with. But as far as entertainment was concerned, I mean, that World Series was just amazing. Yeah,
it's funny because Logan mentioned the Yankees in that game. If they would have won or the Red Sox would have gotten into the postseason. Yankees have a 7-0 lead going into the bottom of, I believe, the bottom of the 7th, the bottom of the 8th down in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay makes it 7-6, and then with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, a guy called Dan Johnson, who had a 100 batting average going into that game, hit an 0-2 pitch just barely over the right field wall, kind of like the Longoria version of the left field homer, which was just miracle after miracle. The Red Sox blew a save in the bottom of the 9th that would have won them the game and gotten them to a playoff. So it was just a miraculous course of events. Now, you mentioned playing with the Rangers. You also played for Ron Washington. I know Larry. You mentioned Larry Parrish having a huge impact of your career. What do you remember about Ron Washington and that series that you like? Either brought back memories of him as a manager or things that you say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened," and the Rangers couldn't hold on to that lead.
Well, I first met Ron Washington when I was with the Oakland A's. I got Rule 5 in 1996. So I went to spring training in 97 with the A's. He was there. He was their infield instructor and was an amazing infield instructor. Mm-hmm. One of the best, probably the best I've ever had. He was awesome. And then years later, he winds up being my manager and just a great guy to play for. Mm-hmm. He wanted you to play hard. And if you played hard, he was happy. So that team embodied, that 2011 team embodied Ron Washington. I mean, these guys, every single game, you saw them running balls out hard, playing the game the right way. And that's what I noticed about that team is they played the game the right way. They weren't a bunch of showboaters that didn't run hard. They played the game the right way. And, I was happy that that they got to the World Series, and unfortunately they weren't able to finish it off. But it just shows how good of a manager he actually was.
And now you mentioned also that the players on the team. Josh Hamilton came over in 2007, I believe, with the trade with Cincinnati. You saw the performance that Vladimir Guerrero put on this year in the home run derby, hitting 91 home runs, 27 of them 440 feet or more. Hamilton put on a similar type performance at the All-Star game at Yankee Stadium. What do you remember about him, his talent, and him as a teammate?
Probably, and I played with some pretty good players, probably the best raw talent that I've ever seen or played with. Watching his batting practice was just impressive. He was so strong, especially in Texas where that ball flies to right field. You would just marvel at not only the fact that he would hit just about every ball out of the ballpark, but how far they went.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't surprised at all during that home run derby that he was having. People were like, they didn't know much about Josh Hamilton, but they were amazed. And it didn't amaze me, but just to watch how he could run and how he could throw and how much power he had. He was such a great ball player, and it's a shame that that he had so many injuries and also drug problems, because if this kid could have a 15-year career without those injuries and drug problems, he would have been a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Some of his natural talent was just amazing. Logan's going to run off a few of the top 10 for us. So we can go back in history, starting with number 10, 9, and 8. Logan, what do you have for us?
Number 10 here, we got 1926. The Cardinals beat the Yankees in 7 games. Of course, when we talk about the 20s and the Yankees, it goes on for days. The legendary stuff there. The 27 Yankees in particular, extremely notorious for being that level. Frank, what do you know about the 1920s Yankees?
I know that they had some amazing teams back then. That's about it. I mean, when you have Babe Ruth and I'm assuming Lou Gehrig, and was Lou Gehrig in the 20s?
Yep.
Yeah. That, but I don't know much more than that.
Well, number 9, 47, Yankees over Dodgers in 7. And this was just one of these series. These teams played often in World Series. Yankees got the better of them this time. We go to number 8 here, and it's 1912. And we talk about Red Sox over the Giants. Of course, we're approaching the days of the curse of the Bambino very soon here for Boston. But 1912 here over the Giants. Game 2 ended in a tie. This is very interesting. So the Red Sox beat the Giants in 8 games, not 7 games, because Game 2 ended in a tie. So that's an interesting note there. We go to number 7 here, 1952, Yankees over the Dodgers in 7. So this is, again, a theme that we're going to see. Yankees and Dodgers, of course, inner city themes there. This one now is one that we all remember for many different reasons at number 6, and it's 2001. And of course, not even a month, just over a month after the events in New York City, and the Yankees are playing in a World Series, and the Yankees had won, in 1998, 1999, and 2000. And here they are in 2001, looking for 4 straight over an Arizona team. So we'll go Frank. That 2001, you're in the league by this point. What do you remember about, let's say, that Yankees team? What was going on in baseball immediately after 9/11? What do you remember? Because I think it's important that we note that when talking about this World Series.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of I remember when it had happened and what was going to happen with baseball, and there was a lot of fear. We weren't sure, what was at the World Series or at games that we were playing, if we were safe out there. I do remember that. I do remember that, obviously the Yankees were a dynasty and just seemed to be a team that no one could beat. I do remember at that point, now, even though I grew up a Yankee fan, at that point, I was rooting against them just because, every time me as a visitor coming in with whatever team I was playing with, it seemed like the Yankees would just kick our butt all the time. and I was ready for another team to win. Luis Gonzalez, who got that game-winning hit, was a former teammate of mine. I played with him in Detroit, and one of my favorite teammates of all time, one of the funniest guys I've ever come across. So I was really rooting for him, and for him to get that big hit, that little blooper, just was awesome. So yeah, that's a World Series that I'll remember, and it's definitely one of the best ones.
Yeah, the funny thing about that World Series, Frank, is games 4 and 5. Yankees are down 2-1. Tino Martinez hits a 2-run home off of young kid with 2 outs and a runner on base. They're 1 out from going down 3-1. And then the next night, Brosius does the same exact thing, down by 2 runs off the same pitcher. 2 instances where it only happened, I believe, once before in World Series history, where a team was down by 2 runs with 2 outs and nobody on base. The Yankees come back and do that twice, back-to-back nights. And that was after being down 2-0 against Oakland in the first round, coming back to win, beating the Mariners, who had won 116 games during the regular season that year, and beating them. Wasn't there this feeling of, look, they just got to win this. Every momentum is clearly on their side.
Absolutely. I mean, when you do that, it always seemed like that with the Yankees. Like, they were never out of it, and they were always, did they get lucky? There were times they got lucky. You just knew they were going to win games. Yeah. Some way, shape, or form, they were going to come back and win. And I know you, Mark, being a Met fan, you probably weren't very happy about that. But yeah, no, there was something special and magical. So for them to get knocked off was surprising.
To be honest, though, I was happy for the Yankees because I despised the Red Sox at that point, working in Connecticut for ESPN, more than I despised the Yankees. So when the Yankees lost in 2003, that was 2004. That was embarrassing for me. After
Right.
It was just kind of hard with Brady and everything else. Yeah, in New England fans. But number 5 on that list, Frank, is the 2011 World Series, and then number 4 is, I know you and Jonathan bet on in 1986.
Oh gosh, don't remind me.
Why don't you tell us about that one?
So the Mets and the Red Sox, me and I was a Yankee fan, like I said, and did not like the Mets. So I bet my friend John Teixeira, I think it was $5 maybe. And it looked like, I was going to win the $5, and then it didn't happen. And I remember telling my dad, because I didn't have $5 and I didn't want to give $5 up. I remember telling my dad, like, I lost the bet. I owe a guy $5. And my dad was pretty stern with me. He said, you make sure you go in there and you pay him the $5 because if you lose a bet, you pay it. And it probably took me a couple of days to get the money to him, but eventually I got it to him. And it wasn't fun having to give him that money. I know, I really thought the Red Sox were going to win that series.
I just mentioned one of the best postseasons ever in the history of baseball. Number 3 was Senators over Giants, and then the 1991 World Series, the Twins and Braves. I know that's in your time. You maybe played with some of those guys. What do you remember about that World Series?
91, was that when Puckett hit that home run to left center?
Yeah, he tied Game 6, and Game 7 was Smoltz against Morris. Morris went to 10 innings.
Gotcha. I don't remember a heck of a lot about that series. I'm trying to think. You'd have to refresh my memory more, but I don't remember a lot about it.
Do you remember facing Jack Moore? Did you ever face Morris in the major leagues?
Yes, I did. He was pretty nasty.
Yeah, that was probably a shining moment. And then obviously number 1 was the Reds and Red Sox. But I just thought that was a great list that came out. Another thing that's happened in the last couple of days, Frank, have you watched any of The Last Dance with Chicago Bulls?
That's on my list. I should be getting to that within the next few days. I hear it's outstanding.
And what do you remember about Jordan and his career?
The most clutch athlete of all time. It seemed like when he got the ball late in the game, he was going to make you pay. He was going to score, and to do it over and over and over again, it was amazing, and that's why he's considered one of the best to ever play. Maybe probably the best basketball player ever, and probably one of the best athletes we've ever seen.
Logan, I know you have some thoughts on that on the Last Dance. Anything else that you want to add and ask Frank about Jordan?
Yeah, were you a Knicks fan, Frank?
Yes, I grew up a Knicks fan.
So you would remember some of the series when they mentioned something very interesting yesterday, how the Knicks wanted to kind of be like the new bad boy Pistons in a way of the Eastern Conference. And they wanted to be the team that takes down the Bulls, just like the Bulls did to the Pistons in 89, 90, those kind of years. So I'll ask you about 93. And then I want to ask you about 94. Of course, the Knicks, against the Rockets in the finals. The Rangers were also in the Cup final at the same time. But what do you remember about those Knicks teams in the early 90s?
I remember, and I didn't watch basketball that much. I watched it when I was really young. Now, when I was starting to get into baseball a little bit more, I didn't watch it as much. But I remember they were a tough group, a tough team where they weren't going to back down. Watching them with Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, all those guys. I mean, it was John Starks. It was fun. I mean, we haven't, unfortunately, and Mark can attest to this. I mean, we haven't seen that since then. But it was something that you were glued to the TV to. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, it's when the Rangers were doing their thing, and I am not a Ranger fan. I'm an Islander fan. So, I do remember, every single night there was something good to watch on TV.
Yeah. Funny thing about that, Frank, I went to Game 5 of that Eastern Conference Finals against the Bulls. Charles Smith missed those shots. The guys I went with, you're going to know. Remember James Hofer?
Sure.
James Hofer, Paul Ciafrone, and Izzy Galante. I went to Game 5. Could have made probably about $10,000 if I wanted to, if I sold the ticket. But we had to suffer through that, and the train ride home was like someone died. But Jordan was in minor leagues at that time. I know one of the guys he played for was Terry Francona. Going around baseball then, because you were in the minor leagues at that time too. What do you remember hearing about Jordan?
I remember hearing that he was the most generous guy. That he'd buy dinner for the team every single night. Amazing athlete, although he didn't necessarily succeed in baseball. I mean, coming from being a basketball player to playing baseball and being able to actually swing and hit the ball is amazing. Something that he hadn't really done in the past. Guys that played with him that I know said he was an unbelievable teammate, just a great teammate, would like to hang out. Like, it's not like he would just show up to the ballpark, play, and then go home and you would never see him. He would hang out with the guys, and I was told that he was a great guy.
Yeah, I've heard some stories about that too. Logan, do you have any questions about Jordan and his minor league experience?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of picking back off that, because of course it didn't work out and he was with the White Sox, but how did that really, how did that go over with, your contemporaries in baseball at that time? Was it kind of, a gung-ho thing? Oh, Michael Jordan's in baseball now, or was it kind of shrug it off? Who cares? We're the real baseball players in a way.
Well, it was kind of a novelty type thing. People were looking at each other like, what's going on around here? Why is this guy here? But I think guys, Jordan was Michael Jordan, the best. And I think guys were more excited just to meet him, to see him, to see how well he would actually do. I think everyone knew that, it wasn't going to last all that long. But there were a bunch of people that were curious and wondering why, all of a sudden he's a baseball player.
I mean, it was a surprise for me to hear that announcement from him in '93 after he had just won 3 straight titles. And he had to deal with his father and then the gambling and all that stuff. So to get out when he did really did help the Knicks, you thought, but it didn't wind up helping them because they didn't wind up winning anyway and almost lost the next year even without him. But Frank, tell us a little bit about your minor league experience. You came from high school, and you went straight to the to minor leagues. I believe. Did you think about going to college at all?
Yeah, I was going to go to Seton Hall. I signed a letter of intent with Seton Hall, and I was looking forward to that. And I then got drafted, and I had a tough decision on my hands whether to sign to play professional baseball, something that was a dream of mine, or go and play at Seton Hall. And it wasn't until it took me over a month to make my decision. It was a tough decision, and my mom and dad and I would sit down every single night and weigh the pros and cons and try to figure it out. And it was kind of agonizing because I didn't want to make the wrong choice. But when the Tigers put a clause in my contract that said if and when I quit, they'd pay for my schooling or give me a certain amount of money for my schooling, and that helped me make the decision because I figured, all right, now I can go try to live out my dream, see if I can make it to the major leagues. And if it doesn't work out, well, then I go back to school. And it was tough. I mean, the minor leagues is not an easy road. I mean, there's you have to be mentally strong, and you have to put up with, playing in bad conditions, living in bad conditions. It was a grind, but I would do it all over again.
Logan, do you have anything you want to ask Frank about that?
Yeah, it's interesting hearing minor league stories for sure, but I've always been interested in something related to the Blue Jays, and I'm happy we have you here because I want to ask you, 2006, that season, in the offseason, the Blue Jays spended some of the most money that they ever had in an offseason. I mean, A.J. Burnett was brought in, one of the best closers in the league, B.J. Ryan, Troy Glaus, Lyle Overbay. It was pretty substantial, and it kind of was the most excitement that there'd been in Toronto since the World Series teams. What do you remember from kind of going into that year? Now, the team won 87 games, and if it's not for being in such a powerhouse division, that's a playoff team. And when I look at the roster, that's a good team. What do you remember kind of the mood in the clubhouse then in 2006?
We were excited. I mean, we thought this was our year. Like you had mentioned, unfortunately, we had the Red Sox and the Yankees in the same division. And, having to play those teams 19 times a year, was tough. And then, these are the two teams that are at the top of the division every single year. But, we had a good team. I think, I'm not sure exactly how far away we were, but I mean, if we win another 3, 4, 5 games, we might have a shot at a wild card. I'm not positive, but I know it was a great group of guys. Probably the best team we had when I was there in Toronto, and it was a lot of fun because we had some stud pitchers with Burnett, Halladay, and then we had the closer B.J. Ryan, and we had our offense, obviously minus Carlos Delgado. He had left, I think, the year maybe before, but it was a lot of fun that year.
Yeah, I always fascinated by that year. Of course, that was, for my age, that's really something I would remember. But I guess I'm biased though, asking. Vernon was an all-star. I mean, Vernon really came into his own that year in 2006. He was fantastic. And you played, like I was just looking, you played 128 games. And if I remember, you were at the top of the lineup a lot of the time. They needed your lefty bat up there big time. Probably something that the Blue Jays can use now, a little more lefty bats. So I appreciate you answering that because it's a season I remember for sure.
Yep.
Frank, talking about 2006, Logan, I actually went up and visited Frank that year. It was my only time visiting Frank when he played in the major leagues. And Frank, I don't know if you remember this, but remember when Ted Lilly got into an argument with Gibbons?
Yep.
So we all went to the mall, and you and Spire, Justin Spire, and a couple other guys were just getting all over him. It's so funny to hear you guys ribbing him about that. And just gave me a kind of an inside look into the camaraderie of Major League Baseball. and the guys that inside the locker room, how tight you guys were, and how much you guys loved playing together. And another teammate you had, it was A-Rod. My first experience seeing you in an actual clubhouse was in 2001 down in Texas. You're in there reading the paper, just relaxing. I'm like, oh my God, he's here in the middle with A-Rod. I'm used to seeing you in ninth grade in the cafeteria. But what was that? What was it playing with A-Rod like? I mean, he came over. That was his free agency year. What was it like playing with him? And then your own free agency. How did that go? And what were the things you thought of when you were signing with the team?
So Alex is not only one of the best players ever to live. He's the smartest player that I've ever played with, and I learned a lot from him. He was the first guy at the clubhouse, in the cage, doing extra work. He's the last guy to leave. He always was talking baseball. If you screwed up during the game, he would come up to you and just talk to you and say, hey, next time maybe you should try this way or that way. He was always a step ahead of guys. Me and him would go into the video room every single day before the game and look over the pitcher. He would try to see if the pitcher was tipping his pitches, if there was anything we could pick up, any tendencies. And that's what made him the best ever. Not only his talent, but his baseball smarts. And he was fun to play with. He really was. I mean, he was a winner. He wanted to win every single game. And that's why he cared for each teammate, he cared to try to correct them when they were doing something wrong. As far as my free agency, I went and signed back with Texas. I signed a 3-year contract there after I played with Toronto. And Texas was a place that I had played previously and loved it. I loved the ballpark. I thought the ballpark fit really well for me as a hitter. I loved the fans there. The fans were always great fans. They supported you, whether you were a winning team or a losing team. And the people, living there, we bought a nice house, and the people in the community were great. So those were some things that I cared about. Being comfortable was definitely something that was important to me. I didn't want to go somewhere across the country, somewhere I didn't know about. In California, I think Texas was the furthest west I would go. And, I loved my time there in Texas. It was a great group of guys and great people.
Yeah, I ditto the stadium part. I got to go to Arlington last 4th of July for a game, and I loved the stadium. Camden Yards I've been to too, which is great. But I wanted to ask you about stadiums. Did you have a favorite place as a visiting team to go play? Like, you ask a lot of baseball players, they'll tell you Wrigley or Fenway. But did you have any quirks with stadiums that you liked?
For me, it was Fenway. I always loved going to Fenway. I believe I hit the best I hit in any stadium at Fenway. Again, the stadium lined up good for me, because if I hit a ball to left field in any other stadium in the air, it was an out. It was a fly ball out. Whereas I had a chance to get it off the green monster for a double. You had the short line down the right field line, the pesky pole. So if I hit a ball down the line, it was going to go out. And then you had, gaps in right center field, particularly where you hit a ball there and you get a double or a triple. The atmosphere was the best in baseball. The fans were some of the smartest fans that I've been around. They knew, even as a visitor, if I made a good play in the field, when I was running off to the dugout, they'd be standing clapping, and I can appreciate that. But I loved playing there, and it's a place that I miss not being able to play at.
Yeah, it's great. That's another thing I think of. A lot of players that I've asked have told me kind of their welcome to the big leagues moment is just walking into Fenway Park, right? You just feel the atmosphere, and like you're saying, spans are second to none. Baseball atmosphere. Did you have like a welcome to the big leagues moment that you said, "Oh, I'm here now"? Maybe it was a pitcher you faced, or a particular game? Like, when did you really know, okay, I've arrived now, this is happening?
Well, there were a few times, but I'm going to go with, I mean, like my first hit or something like that, but I'm going to go with this. The first time that I walked out of the dugout from the clubhouse at Yankee Stadium, and was on the, on the field looking around at all the fans before batting practice. That was the moment for me because, as a Yankee fan, my dad would take me to, I don't know, 5, 10 Yankee games a year. And that was a place that I just loved, the smell of the grass, that organ playing, seeing the jerseys, the pinstripes. I mean, it brought back like a nostalgic feel. And when I went out there, I said, oh my God, I got to play tonight in front of 50,000 people, but this is it. I'm here in the big leagues. So that was a pretty cool time for me.
Yeah, Frank, you mentioned your success at Fenway Park, 337 at Jacobs Field. That was your highest batting average of ballparks you had played at least 15 games in. 337 at Jacobs Field, 330 at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City, and 321 at US Cellular Field, 314 at the Metrodome, and then 310 at Fenway Park.
Okay.
Now, you had your most hits at Fenway, but again, because you played the AL East for longer, you had more games at, second place, you had the second most hits was Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
So, I remember you coming into Yankee Stadium and you mentioned how it was like for you walking through that hallowed ground. For me too, as a reporter, I was in awe. And I remember going into their clubhouse and El Duque holding the door open for me and being like, oh my God, I should not be here. I absolutely should not be here. I am way out of my realm. And it's just a special, special place. Old Yankee Stadium before they rebuilt it with Thurman Munson's locker and all that stuff. You mentioned your dad. I know he's played a huge part in this. Logan, his dad was my first coach when we were 9 years old. Learned a lot from his dad. What kind of a ball player was your dad?
Oh, he was really good, and I know that not only because he's told me, but there are scouts in the area some of them have passed away now, but years ago would tell me, your dad was a better player than you. And they were being serious. He was a center fielder. He could run very well, and he was a right-handed bat that could hit well. He went to Bridgeport. He played baseball at Bridgeport, and then he had a surgery on his knee, and he couldn't run that well anymore. And it kind of pushed him out of the game. He wasn't a prospect anymore. But no, they say that he was a really, really good player, and he was also a really good basketball player. But his love for sports, especially baseball, is the reason why, I got into baseball. And, he used to come home from work and we used to go in the backyard and he'd pitch to me and we'd play catch, and then we'd go in and watch the Yankee game every single night. So those were some memories that I'll never forget.
Logan, what are some other favorite memories you have about watching Frank play?
Well, I remember when I first started watching baseball, fell in love with baseball. I remember baseball when I was really young. I was born in 97. I don't mean to make anyone feel
that was when you came up, Frank. There you go.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a connection there, I guess. No, but I really fell in love with baseball right actually when Frank came to the Blue Jays, like 2004, 2005. 2006 was the year where I think I was old enough to really understand what was happening around. Like, I would know, like, all right, the Blue Jays are in the AL East, and this is the American League, really understand. So I really remember this about you, Frank, in the outfield, how you had a good arm too. You talked about your dad kind of being a great outfielder. I remember you having a good arm. I was also a lefty when I played baseball, so that was something cool to me. So I always liked that. When I was a kid, I gravitated towards players like that. And I just like guys who got on base and had some good speed. I liked it. You set up that lineup pretty well, especially when Vernon was coming to his own. Gloss was just one hell of a power guy at one point in his career. Lyle Overbay, I remember in Toronto, we called him the doubles machine because it seemed like he would only hit doubles
Yep.
And when you'd hit a home run, we'd say Overbay hits it over the wall. So I remember those teams really well. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed watching you because those teams for me, well, that '06 team, like I've mentioned, really was the first team I loved in a way in baseball.
Yep.
So it does mean a lot to me, and you were on it. So
Yeah.
Logan, I got a funny story for you about Frank and I. Okay, so we're in 8th grade, and this is we're playing for the Nesconsett League. Remember Nesconsett, Frank? It was we were 13. We went from going from 45 feet pitcher's mound and I believe 60 feet bases to now full, 66 inches and 90 feet running. So it was a big jump for us, 12 to 13. But the Nesconsett League was a little, like the pitcher's mound was only, I believe, like 53, 54 feet when we were 13, and the bases were only 75 feet. So Frank and I were on the same team. We had this other guy, Jake Miller, who wound up playing at Liberty, was starting catcher. His brother actually was in the Giants organization, Benji. And we just destroyed teams all year, absolutely destroyed them. It was great for me to pitch because from that shorter distance, I was able to throw that much harder. And so we destroyed everybody, got to the championship game. 2 of our own players didn't play because they went to Great Adventure. And so it was just me, Frank, and Jake figuring we could still easily beat this team. And we lost. That was my first really frustrating experience of sometimes the best team doesn't win. Frank, what was Little League like for you? How much did you value that? And what do you remember about it?
I loved it. I especially where we grew up. I think the Smithtown area has always had great Little Leagues. The thing that I remember the most about Little League is that opening day when we would do the parade down the avenue. I mean, great memories. I mean, you so excited the night before. I couldn't wait. You wake up, do the parade, get to the ballpark, and play a game. I also remember the camps that they had, the booster camps. Craig Biggio was one of my instructors.
Same thing with me, Coach Biggio.
Yeah.
He would let us do anything. We'd be like killing each other, beating each other up. Biggio just be with jaw in his mouth.
Yeah, but there's been so many good baseball players to come from the Smithtown area. And I think it's a testament to the Little Leagues and the coaching that we've had here.
Frank, I got a couple questions for you, Logan. These are for you too. As I kind of get to know our talent a little better, a little outside of sports. May the 4th was yesterday. We know the obsession everybody has with Star Wars. Frank, your favorite Star Wars film?
I'm not a Star Wars guy.
Not a Star Wars guy. Oh, come on. No Star Wars, Star Trek. Come on, Frank, get with it, man.
Listen, I probably only watched the first one, and that's it. I was never into Star Trek, Star Wars, anything like that. Yeah. Wow. I don't know why. I didn't enjoy him.
Logan, what about you?
I'm with Frank here. I gotta be honest.
You guys don't know what you're missing. Oh man, am I in the right show here? Oh, come on, Star Wars. Star Wars, like billion dollar movies.
Yeah, not for me.
No, okay. Well, okay. When I first went over your house in St. James, we rented a movie and sat in your movie theater. Do you remember what movie we watched?
Oh gosh. No, I don't remember. And I don't think Logan's going to remember either.
No, Logan didn't remember, but it was Kaiser Soze was the...
The Usual Suspects, right?
Usual Suspects, yeah. Logan, and if you didn't see it, one of the greatest movies ever.
Yep.
Yeah, just great to the end and everything. But Frank's got, you're able to sit there, and I hadn't seen him for a while, so that was really fun.
Yep.
Favorite Beatles song, Frank?
Gosh. Mark, you're asking me tough questions. I'm not a Beatles guy either.
Oh, gosh. No, all right, Rolling Stone.
Okay, Yellow Submarine. How about that?
There you go, Yellow Submarine. Logan, what about you?
Well, my band, we do Come Together and Another Brick in the Wall mashed up.
Oh, wow. Whoa!
But favorite Beatles song, I like Hard Day's Night. I like how it just gets right into it, and I love the vocals. The harmonies are great in Beatles, just like the Beach Boys. But yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah, Long and Winding Road for me, one of my favorites. Hey, if you guys haven't seen it, want to see a good movie, there's a movie called Yesterday on HBO, which is about a guy who wakes up in a world where the Beatles don't exist. Very
Really?
good. Right? Probably
Okay.
your world right there, Frank. Put Star Wars in there, we're right at home.
All right, why don't you start asking me some questions I can answer?
All right. Here we go. I guess I could ask you about things at home. Now, how about more obvious things, Frank? Favorite comedy?
I've got several, but I'm gonna go with. Oh, gosh, it's tough to. I'm gonna go with The Hangover.
The Hangover. Yeah, very good. The first one, obviously.
Yes, the first one.
Logan, what about you?
Good answer. Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat with thinking about that. It is a good question. I'll go Hangover. That's a good answer. And it's relatively recent. It's
Sure.
something I remember when it came out. It was probably a little too inappropriate for me when it came out at the age I
Right.
was. But I liked it. Yeah.
No questions you can answer. That's a good one, Frank. Next time I'll do a little better.
There you go.
Things that you like. All right, here we go. Seinfeld and Cheers.
Seinfeld.
Logan.
Yeah, Seinfeld is brilliant. It's a show about nothing, and that's why it's brilliant.
Now, to end this, Frank, we only got a couple minutes left. The Jets, okay? Joe likes to get on us about being Jets fans. I know, it can be a rough existence for us. Did you see the draft? What do you think of what they did?
I'm happy. I mean, I think, one of our biggest things is we've got to protect Darnold. So I think, Becton's going to do that. We did get a wide receiver I don't know much about, but it looks like he can kind of stretch the field a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, I think it was a pretty good draft.
And like, I know Joe's obsessed with thinking that Buffalo is going to win the East. I don't know about you, Logan. I know probably you guys think the same. Frank, are you still leaning toward Buffalo, or do you think the Jets got a shot?
No, I'm leaning towards Buffalo. I mean, I've seen this whole the whole Jets movie play out every single day. All right, so
we rented that one before. Yeah.
Until I see it, I think I still like Buffalo.
Logan, any last thoughts for Frank before we end this?
Frank, thank you for joining us. I want you to be aware, May 1st was the anniversary of your 6-for-6 game in Chicago, by the way. So,
I saw that. I saw that.
Congratulations on that. Great
Thank
game.
you.
2004. Thank you. This was really cool for me. So thank you, both of you.
Thank you, Logan.
And Frank, hopefully we can do this again in a couple weeks. You mentioned about the things you don't like. Is for someone who's known you for so long, Frank. I figured these were obvious things, but I'm glad we at least got that out of the way, so that way we can go down that road again. But one last question: Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's one of my favorite shows. Larry David. Did you ever meet any of those celebrities when you were playing that you like? Oh my God, this guy like Seinfeld or anybody, Chris Rock or anybody like that you remember and you had a chance to meet?
I met a lot of celebrities. I'm gonna move over to music because this guy Eddie Vedder was somebody that I met. I'm a big Pearl Jam fan.
Oh, there you go. Should ask Pearl Jam.
There you go. And Lyle Overbay was good friends with him because Lyle's from out west, I think, Oregon or Washington, something like that. So he was good friends with him. Pearl Jam came to Toronto to play, and we had a game. After the game, we went over to the concert, and then Eddie Vedder, Mike McCready, the whole band took us backstage, showed us everything, and we hung out with. It was me, Eric Hinsky, Lyle Overbay, I think Reed Johnson, and we hung out with Eddie Vedder for more than 2 hours just talking. And he's a big baseball fan that you may or may not know. He's a big Chicago Cub fan. And it was pretty awesome. But yeah, I've got to meet a lot of actors and actresses as well. But Eddie Vedder tops the charts for me.
Eddie Vedder's a huge baseball fan. Yeah, he grew up in Southern California. He's known for being from Seattle because the band.
Okay.
But he has this fascination over the Cubs. That's crazy. I've heard about it a lot. He's even sung "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" at Wrigley before. So he loves his Cubs, just like Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins.
Yep.
Huge Cubs fans.
Once again, thank you, Frank, for joining us. Hopefully we can do this again in a couple weeks. Logan, you're a superstar. Just pay attention to this kid, Frank. You're going to see him pretty soon on Broadway or any type of TV station that wants to go anywhere. We got a future superstar here.
Awesome.
Remember, you can find Stolen Bases. It can be heard on Barn Burner Radio Network on 122 platforms. And remember to download the Barn Burner app as well as the Zingo TV app on any of your iOS or Android devices. For Frank Catalanotto and Logan Lockhart, I am Mark Kelly saying goodbye. We'll see you next time here on Barn Burner Network and Zingo TV.